Me. Could you hear it? Because I just random did that.
Oh, I'm with you.
So I was like...
Okay. Let me turn my shit down so it's not crazy loud. I don't know why I'm listening to myself so loud. Okay. I'm going to start recording now. For real. I don't know why it does that countdown. Alright.
It started?
Yeah, we're recording.
Okay. I like it. These brand new mics.
I know, they sound
Brand
great.
new mics.
I feel like I want to do like the sweaty balls.
I can't even remember what he says.
I know. I should have prepared for that one.
Yeah, I know. You hit me with that out of nowhere. Out of nowhere.
Mic check. Okay, so. Alright. Let's get right to it. We're being serious now.
We are being serious.
Welcome to Gilded Trash Podcast, episode 3.
Numero tres.
Tres leches.
Tres
Is that a
leches.
thing? I feel like I heard of that. If you listened to last week's episode, then you know we talked about some comedy. One of the questions I forgot to ask you, though, is assuming you get booked on a big show.
Right. Maybe one day.
Because I'm a stage mom.
Right.
Damn it. What's on your rider?
Well, we should preface that a little bit by saying, too, is that we were watching an episode of Kill Tony, and they were making fun of Cam Patterson's rider. Because it was like candy and goofy shit, Kool-Aid. That was the big one. But what would be on my rider? Orange Tic Tacs. 3 packs. 3 packs orange Tic Tacs.
See, that's something that I wouldn't have even thought of for myself. I mean, I'm never going to get booked on a show because I don't want to be on a show. But let's say that I'm, I don't know, a guest on a podcast and I get a rider.
Right.
I don't even know.
Anything you need a rider for.
But, no, I wouldn't have thought of Tic Tacs. I clearly need one now because I'm scratchy throated. But, I don't even know what's on mine.
If it's a Sunday, I need 4 TVs set up for football to see the Steelers game in case I would be in that. But yeah, I mean, Diet 50/50. 1 jug of Gallagher's Diet 50/50.
It has to be Gallagher's.
Yeah, I don't want it if it's not. Yeah.
Otherwise known as an Arnold Palmer. But I can't say it.
Right, but.
So I call it an Arnie Palmy all the time. Arnie Palmy.
Arnold Palmer alert. Arnold Palmer alert.
But Gallagher's calls it 50/50. Which is, okay, cool. And they have a diet version, which is really good, but I try to stay away from chemicals as much as humanly possible. So my rider would be fresh.
Gallagher's.
My rider would be fresh brewed tea.
Home brewed since 1959. Right here in Johnstown, Pennsylvania.
We're not sponsored by anybody yet.
No, but I support them that much. They can have it for free.
Okay, so what are we talking about this week? Oh, wait. Tic Tacs. That's the only thing on your rider?
No, that and 50/50 and beef
Gallagher's.
jerky. Grandma Utz barbecue chips. A 2-ounce bag.
And there is a huge difference between Grandma Utz and Utz. And if you don't know that and you accidentally show up with the wrong bag to a party.
Oh, I'll be pissed.
No, remember I did that?
No. So here's what happened is they switched it on you. All my life I heard about Aunt Angie because she moved away and one of these Grandma Mom had been getting it. Mom is the one to blame because she had it wrong.
Fucking Lauren.
Yeah, she had it wrong. She told me Grandma Utz, but it was just regular Utz or something apparently. You know what I mean? It was some kind of mistake like that. So those are the kind of mistakes I don't make with snacks. I don't make snack mistakes. And
you're serious about that too.
I don't make snack mistakes.
It was my first time meeting Aunt Angie from Chicago, and I brought her the wrong chips.
The wrong chips. Can you believe that? Unbelievable.
However, what do we talk about this week?
The art of true crime.
The art, I would like to refer to it as the phenomenon.
Yeah, the phenomenon, of course, yeah.
So, true crime.
I mean, let's start off. It's a tough. Everybody listens to true crime. Matter of fact, 57% of Americans consume true crime. So 2 times
and
more.
The other 43 are children under the age.
Yeah, I mean, you got to. Well, no, but you take that into account. I mean, is a percentage. So
right.
You know what I mean, like that. That's pretty much probably. I mean, I'm just throwing this out there. We'll say 2/3 of adults.
Yeah, that's
you know what I mean. Like I would say that's probably what that number is close to. So 2 times more women than men
dream about murdering their husband.
No, listen to or well, I keep saying listen, but it's we're talking. I mean, first off. So did you know there's 24,000 true crime podcasts?
I did not know that.
24,000. So, but then there's.
I mean, that's why I didn't want to get into the true crime genre.
Right,
off the bat.
It's saturated. Put it that way. And
we'd be really good at it, though.
Yeah, I think we would, and I think that and we have a passion for it. Like a lot of them don't, but so you have 24,000 true crime podcasts. Then you have every streaming service has their own specials that they do on it.
Right.
You have news magazines like Dateline, 2020 that do nothing but profile true crime.
Right.
You have the ID channel. You have Oxygen. I mean, they're 24-hour networks that are dedicated to nothing but true. If you want to consume true crime, it's literally probably the most popular genre of damn near anything. For example, one of the things that I learned was out of the top 500 most popular podcasts on Apple and Spotify, a quarter of them are true crime podcasts.
Wow.
So, I mean, that gives you a hand. Because when you think about all the different subjects that are, I mean, my God, there's podcasts about everything. So to think that a quarter of the most popular ones are true crime,
right?
That tells you how big the genre is.
Right. No, I love that you brought up the ID channel, though, because it's such a dichotomy. And it's a little bit embarrassing, but like my favorite time of year, like when the kids were still home, right, was cooking and baking for Thanksgiving and Christmas, listening to the ID channel while I was cooking and baking in the kitchen. I loved it. Like, but it's a weird thing because like...
Fair point. Like you said, what we had, true crime is the background noise of our life.
Of our life, yes.
Because whenever we want some noise in the background, we're cooking, like you said, or cleaning, or what, it could be anything. And you just want something on for background noise.
Which we'll get to.
Yeah. True crime. Yeah. We're always listening to it. Yeah. We consume as much true crime as we do comedy, and that's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably 50-50.
Yeah, it really honestly is, yeah.
1 or 2 game shows sprinkled in, and that's about all we got.
So here's a little trivia question for you. Where do you think, what was the most popular, so they asked during this survey, they did a really good study, like, it wasn't a government, but it was like Pew Research, or, you know what I mean? It was like a legitimate company that studies stuff.
Okay.
It wasn't like, it wasn't just like Bob's true crime thing on the internet, you know.
That's the one you always tell me about, 508 or something.
538.
538.
Well, that's serious. But no.
I'm serious about my true crime stats.
No, they should cover that. That would be good. I would love to see the numbers, but
neither.
So they asked them, right? Neither here nor there. They asked them. They said, "Where do you consume the majority of your true crime?" And they gave them every option. And what do you think the number one answer was? Matter of fact, 62% of the people that listen to true crime, this is their number one source.
Where did they get it from?
Yeah, it could be a streaming service. It could be a podcast. It could be, where do they consume the majority of their true crime stuff, whether it be shows, podcasts, what platform?
Given that Apple's the biggest streaming platform, I'm gonna have to say Apple.
It's actually Netflix.
Whoa, okay.
So 62% of the people in the survey said that was the number one source of where they watch or consume the most true crime.
Right.
After that was YouTube, which
Right.
makes sense.
What was that one, the Netflix true crime thing that blew up? It was like something.
The Making a Murder.
Making a Murder. Yeah,
Stephen Avery. I mean, it caused a lot of and honestly, like I don't want to speak on it because we didn't follow up watching the following season, so like I have no idea where the case is, what's even really going on. Because
I
know
don't know if it was because I'm a little bit probably behind in technology. Not like I mean from like what I catch on to, like what the trends are, right? But when that was out, I feel like it was probably around. It was like a amalgamation of like social media blowing up and Netflix blowing up. So people had the ability to kind of chat in real time about what they were seeing on that.
Right. As far as like, it's one of those things, that was like one of the first big ones on Netflix. But I'm just thinking like, I don't know what was going on at that time, like you were just saying, but like, you know, Tiger King was so big because it hit like right at the beginning of COVID. So it became like such. So I was wondering if maybe there was some kind of event tied in there that may have even boosted that even more than it already was going to be.
Right.
Here's a fun one for you. So the 3 cities had more Google searches for true crime than the rest. What do you think those top 3 cities were? And I have no idea what the correlation was. And even the study questioned it as far as like, why is it these 3 cities? Because there was no relation between that and the number of like unsolved crimes is what they looked for that.
So I kind of feel like Orlando's on the list.
They are not. I'll tell you what the top 3 were. Are you ready for this? Atlanta.
Okay.
Cleveland. And Minneapolis. They were the top 3 states that had the most true crime related Google searches.
It's crazy.
Yeah, very. And I, like I said, they questioned why those 3, you know, were above and above everybody else.
You know, I'm a stats person.
Yeah.
Like my brain's going to like all the like, my brain's already trying to put together the recipe of how that is or why that is.
Right, for sure.
One of the assumptions that I'm going to make for Atlanta is that there's a lot of production companies down there. So there's a good chance that there's a lot of people that are doing podcasts out of Atlanta that are doing. Does it correlate to the amount of true crime podcasts that exist all up?
Right. You know, yeah, I'm not sure.
Would you say the other 2 were Cleveland?
Cleveland and Minneapolis.
I think
both cold.
Cold up there, and they're
bored.
Shit all to do.
They're like, that's exactly. They got shit all to do, folks. Shit all to do.
Mute second.
Yeah. So.
Well, so real quickly, I want to just run down through a little bit of a timeline.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. What was your introduction to true crime?
So, just overall in history, what I'm doing.
Oh, okay.
Like, my introduction to true crime, it was fucking Law and Order.
Right, I mean...
That's not even true crime.
Right.
Like, I don't even know when... Because when I was younger, I was more into music.
Right.
And I was really into, like, anarchy.
Anarchy. I was really into it, man. Did you have a shirt with an A?
No, but I wrote it on all my
Ooh, you were
covers.
Cool.
Oh, yeah.
You were cool.
Yeah.
You little anarchist. I thought it was something evil. Anarchy.
Yeah.
Because it was anarchist,
right.
Which looks an awful lot like Christ. Let me tell you. And Satanist. Yeah, it looks like Christ and Satanist. And since I grew up in a religious household, I was like, I don't know what this is.
Anyist is bad.
I don't know what this is, but I don't want a part of it.
It's a baddest.
It's got something to do with the devil.
Ooh, what just happened there?
What's it saying? Did it stop recording?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it did for a sec. Because there was a piece of feedback, and I think it was just because the table jumped and it clicked something.
No, I get it. Well, that's cool that we can see it, though.
Yeah, I love that it, like, just let me know. Like,
yeah.
Hey, you're going to have a scream in your audio.
You were an anarchist.
No, I wasn't.
That's where we left off. You were an anarchist.
I thought I was going to be an anarchist.
You were an antichrist.
But, no, like, so when I was younger, so first of all, my parents didn't feel that it was appropriate to talk about those type of things in front of children.
Right.
Like the Mount Rushmore. I'm not going to talk about it because that's somebody else.
Right, but no, they didn't want you to be exposed to like death and murder and stuff
exactly.
like that. Right?
Matter of fact.
I mean, that makes sense.
The first funeral I went to, I was probably like 17, 18. I went to no like relatives' funerals when I was younger.
Right.
Probably not even my grandparents, and they died when I was like really young, like 4, 5, and 6 maybe. My dad's people, but I didn't. I don't even know what I was interested in. Like I wouldn't even like crime wasn't even on my mind. Like
I didn't have crime on my mind.
I was kind of really naive, to be honest with you. And
I thought maybe there was like a girl that got kidnapped at your high school or something fun like that.
No. I was thinking about getting out of Johnstown when I was in high school.
Well, no, the reason I brought that up is because, as you know, my introduction to it was really the Debbie Klein case.
Right.
So, from Waynesboro, Pennsylvania, because both my grandmas, my mom, it happened in the late 70s.
Right, like your mom would have been like...
And she was, my mom was a teenager, and this girl was, I believe she was still a teenager. I think she was like 19 or so. She was working, she was out of school.
She was a nurse. Right?
Yeah, I think she was working
like
at the hospital. Yeah.
I'm with you.
Like an orderly, type of deal.
Candy
at the hospital.
No, was she a candy striper?
I don't know what that is.
Back in.
What is candy striping? Is it involve fruit stripe gum? Because if it does, do they just walk around? That's what they're in charge of. Like, got some fruit stripe here. It'll brighten your day for 4.2 seconds.
I don't know where that fruit. I don't know why it was called that, and it's kind of weird. So I don't like to talk about it. Candy striper.
Yeah, but I don't know. So I don't know if she was a candy striper. What she did she worked at the hospital, and where she got kidnapped because they found her car or whatever was close to where my mom's house was.
Right.
It was like less than a mile, maybe right around a mile from there.
Less than, I think.
Yeah, I think less than. And so, like, it was a big deal, like, for her growing up. So then they wrote a book about it, and the book was called Missing Person, and everybody in Waynesboro had 10 copies of this book.
Right.
And we talked about in a previous episode about being scared of books. I was scared of this book, let me tell you what, buddy. I did not want that book anywhere around me. Nothing. I didn't want nothing to do with that book. And I don't know why, but I thought that Debbie Klein was going to come get me, kidnap me to the other side, pull her... I don't know. We don't know. But you said you had a little bit about the timeline about how true crime how did it get started?
Yeah, because I think when we think of true crime, we jump straight to maybe, I don't even know, the first show or kind of the ID channel. Inception was the first real, other than Dateline in 2020 and those shows, which came on once a week or whatever. Oh, I mean, we pack all the 80s in there. Most of us think of Unsolved Mysteries, America's Most Wanted.
Ooh.
But this shit actually started in the 1800s. So to all my Bridgerton fans, think about Lady Whistledown, right? She's talking about things, drama in the elite class. Well, in order to entertain people with money, back in the day, they would create these little pamphlets about true crime and sell them on the little street corners.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
Did you hear about Debbie? Hello, good sir. Did you hear about Betsy? Someone's murdering virgins down at the corner store.
Ooh, I wonder how the Jack the Ripper pamphlet read.
Right. Watch out, hookers. Good day, ladies.
There's a ripper on the loose.
There's a ripper on the loose.
So that was the pamphlets were geared towards the people with money, right? So of course, for every there's always the flip side of the coin. So for the poor people, there were ballads created, and
like
they
a
were
narco
ballads.
corrido.
Yeah, narco corrido. It is in order to understand the crime from the criminal's perspective.
Right.
Right?
Narco corrido.
So, what do you hear all the time? What was their motive? So they created these ballads to understand the criminal's motive.
I would like to hear some of these.
I know, like I want to go back and dig now.
Betsy was a stupid bitch. I shot her in the head. She nagged me every morning from the time I got out of bed.
That's exactly it.
But it would be like fun like that though. They'd be like, hey ho, and there's dancing kids in the streets.
Wait, didn't we find that there was a serial killer who recorded one of those vinyls one time about shooting his wife?
I mean, we may have. I do vaguely kind of remember something about that, but I don't.
Yeah, but so they would take the lyrics from the ballads and print them up and hang them around town so that everybody could learn the songs of the "Oh Woe the Criminal."
Oh whoa, the criminal am I shot my wife in the eye. I feel like a lot of them be about murdering your wife back then. Because those guys were like really abusive. They were very abusive back then.
But then
they would beat their women incessantly.
If it's swept under the rug, is it even a crime?
Well, I mean.
So then, like, that's like the 1700s. In 1807, Henry Tufts was one of the first people to write an extensive biography about being a criminal. He was in...
Henry Tufts.
Yeah, he was an American.
Did he form Tufts University?
I think he formed Tufts Law.
Tufts Law. Tough Law. That sounds like a show in USA with Jeff Bridges. This fall on USA, Tough Law with Don Johnson.
What's that show that he's got coming out?
Jeff Bridges?
Yeah.
Big John or something like that.
I don't know, but it looks good. I was going to say Unforgiven because that's what it reminds me of.
Right. No one knows what it's about because it's just in the trailer. They just play Black Hole Sun and then he shoots a gun like into the camera and they're like, this fall. And you're like, what's it even about?
Right.
You're just selling it on Jeff Bridges has a gun? Like,
right.
That's not enough for me.
And you're appealing to the grunge crowd with Black Hole Sun.
Right. It's like a stylized version though, so.
Yeah, it is. I agree. So I have no idea who Henry Tufts is anyway, and I really don't care because then you jump the whole way fast forward to 1965 when little Truman Capote, when he wrote In Cold Blood.
I have a question about Truman Capote. Is that who the Truman Show is based on?
No. No.
I've always thought that, though.
No.
I think it's a secret message. I don't know what the Truman Capote story is, but I think it has something to do with the Truman Show.
No, but Capote is like...
Yeah, what was the name of that?
In Cold Blood.
In
it was
Cold
about
Blood.
those two guys that like went and murdered that whole family.
Oh, right.
I mean, I've seen the movie, I've read the book, and I still don't know because all my crimes just kind of run together. Yeah. It's a melting pot of crimes in this brain. But he's often the one who they give credit to for the modern fascination with true crime because he wrote that book.
You know, something you just said there really made me think about something, and that's, so you just said about all the crimes running together. Mm-hmm. What if you're a homicide detective? You're like, oh shit, that wasn't this case. I thought I solved it. You know what I mean? Like you thought something. You're like, oh, that wasn't this case.
I'm so sure that happened.
It has to happen. Like, that's your whole life.
Right. Like, how do you not, what do I want to say?
How do they not bleed together?
Right.
I mean, anything that you do repetitively
you're
becomes...
You're interviewing a witness and you like ask a question, but it's meant for the other case, so you're not even getting anywhere. Like, that has to happen, especially when you're fucking tired. Like,
oh my, yeah.
I don't know.
Is my camera still running?
Yes.
Okay. Well, because you know sometimes it switches.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Good call, though. I'm glad
How do
you
we
asked.
mark that? There you go.
Oh, we've got noise gate on, so it didn't make my clock.
Right.
You know,
It's
but
fine.
anyways. So, and then, well, in between the 1800s and old Henry Tuff or Harry Tuft or whatever his name
Henry
is,
Roth.
and don't be doing that. And and 65 with Truman Capote, there was magazines were popular, right? And they were called True Detective magazines, which I think is awesome because I love when things come full circle and you don't realize it till later, right? So the show True Detective, which we love, is now I feel like they called it that. I could be wrong. I'm making a grand assumption here. But I feel like they called it that because of the old True Detective magazines. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that would make sense for that. Speaking
Right.
of which, I started watching that again. It's really good. True Detective Season 1 is one of the greatest pieces of television that I've ever witnessed. Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson are riveting in that.
If you haven't seen it already.
If you've never seen it,
It
go watch
is.
it.
It's really good. It's really freaky and creepy and good.
Yeah.
It's good. But I think I like the latest version with Jodie Foster the best. That was probably my favoriteest.
Interesting.
I think it was.
Yeah, the other two seasons aren't even in contention, though.
No, I
No.
don't remember who was.
We
in
didn't
it,
even
to be
watch
honest
the
with
third
you.
one.
I was actually who was in the second one, and I was really
Vince
excited.
Vaughn, Colin Farrell.
Well, speaking of Vince Vaughn, that show we're watching right now is really effing
Bad
good.
Monkey.
Bad Monkey.
Yeah, I highly
that's-
recommend that as well.
Yeah.
That's our TV recommendations for the week, folks.
But anywho, so back to what we were talking about. So then you fast forward to the rise of television. We mentioned it earlier. You've got your Unsolved Mysteries, America's Most Wanted, and all that. And then all of a sudden, you've got streaming, and then podcasts come along. And then
Right.
Here we are in this crazy.
Crazy world.
I mean, you can literally get your crime anyway, anywhere. Why are you staring at yourself?
I'm not. I was watching the screen there because I don't think that I'm hearing you through the headphones. That's all.
I'm hearing you though.
Yeah, I hear me very clearly. I was just watching to see if there was any difference in the way our voices were coming across in things, but they're not. It's all the same.
I'm not muted.
No, you're good. You're good. No, it's registering. I just was watching.
But can you only hear me from the out?
I can't hear you through my headphones, I don't think. And you can't. Can you hear me through yours?
Yeah, totally.
Huh.
Are you sure you can't hear me through the headphones? Are you sure you can't hear me now? You can hear me?
No. Not through my headphones. But that may have something to do with the settings. I'm not worried about it. I can hear you fine.
Oh.
But I just was making sure that it was picking up.
It-
Yeah. Okay, back to work.
Back to work. Okay, so. Oh, yeah. So we were getting. Well, no. I mean, do we want to talk about any of that in the middle? I mean, we have a lot more to get to, so I don't care about the 80s anymore. They're oversaturated.
Yeah, whatever.
So
Yeah.
fast forward to podcasts, right? And I think I heard about podcasts. I thought it sounded like a cool concept, but I thought it was a bunch of nerds just sitting around talking about tech shit. And at the time, I didn't know I was like a true blue tech geek, right? Which I kind of am getting to. So regardless of all that, one of my girls at work, thank you, Carrie, recommended a couple podcasts. So we started out listening to Serial.
Yeah. Which, that's the first time we took on a case. That's the first time we cut our first case.
And I think if you're like over the age of let me think about this for a second. If you're over the age of 27-ish, maybe, you probably cut your true crime teeth on Serial Podcast.
Yeah, I mean, it was the first big... It, like, blew up. I mean,
Yeah,
it's still probably, to this day, the most... of all time. The biggest true crime podcast of all time.
Well, and at the time, we were still working in Frederick, Maryland. And so we're just, like, weird groupies about states and cities and stuff. So the fact that Baltimore is so close to Frederick.
Right. Well, we could... It allowed us to...
Accessible. That's what I want to say.
Well, I think that also kind of started our... It wasn't the first murder tourism thing, but the roots were there.
Yeah, the roots were there. Because we were like, oh, we can go check this out.
So what I meant there when I'm talking about murder tourism is we like to, when we visit a place, we like to find...
Murder somebody
we like to...
State.
Nah, get out of here. You just solved a crime. No. We like to find a case that we're interested in that took place where we're going.
Right.
And I think the first case that we really worked, though, Counterclock, seasons 1 and 2, in the Outer Banks, because we vacationed there. So we drove all the spots.
Yes.
We were able to map it out. Plus, there's not a lot of roads in the Outer Banks. Right. There's like a main highway, and then there's lots of little streets and stuff, but like it's very navigable.
Yeah.
In terms of like, you're not just in a town that could go anywhere. It's the boundaries are defined.
Right. And so the landmarks are really easy to find.
That's exactly right. It's very easy. You're like, oh, they're like, it's right across from Ted's Diner, and all you got to do is find it, and you look, there's the apartment building.
Right.
Matter of fact, so much so that in that case, we discovered some things that, like, when they say things in podcasts, you don't always understand it fully. Like, when they say it's close to the police station.
Right.
That girl's house was close to the police station. When they say that, they didn't say it's, like, almost touching it. Like, out through the, like, their buildings are almost touching each other.
Right.
Like.
Right. No, you're right. I love it.
You don't get that unless you go see it.
Right, because especially if you've never been there, right? Because perspective is everything. So if you don't have the perspective of the way that the town's laid out. Now, we had been to the Outer Banks before, so we kind of knew how it was laid out, but still, in the moment, you're just glossing over the information to get a slight visual to get you through the story. But when you, like, deep dive it, and you're, like, looking at a map, and you're like, oh, that's right here.
And you're like, it took her 19 minutes to get from here to here, and it's only this far. Like, what happened?
Yeah.
It gives you that kind of insight that you can't necessarily discern from just listening to somebody tell a story.
So if you ever get a chance to do some murder tourism...
But now we do that everywhere.
Yeah,
if we're going to Pittsburgh, we're like, oh, what's our murder today?
Yeah, we want to listen. We find a podcast. We see if we can scope a spot or whatever the case may be. Like, go up,
I really like it when there's food, when there's a food in the story. They worked at a diner. We got to go there. They were at a bar. We got to go there.
Speaking
so
of
you get to
a diner,
you get to go through and see that stuff.
Yeah, remember Denise Johnson worked at a diner?
No. Stacey Stanton
worked in a diner. And what did that diner turn into?
Well, it turned into like an event space. And my brother had his wedding reception there, which we didn't know till after the fact. You know what I mean? When we were researching, we're like, wait a second. This is...
Right.
Where that was.
We were in this building.
Yeah.
For a fully different reason.
Yeah. We discovered that.
That was really...
That was part of our murder tourism, because when we were down there,
Yeah.
That's how we found that.
That's when we coined the frame murder tourism, because we found some...
That sounds so... I don't know. But it is what it is. Lots of people love true crime. Lots of people love to see... There's a reason that the Lizzie Borden house is like a... national landmark.
Absolutely.
People want to see where stuff happened.
Absolutely. For all different kinds of reasons.
Yeah, all day. We're not going there to be like, ooh, somebody got murdered here.
Yeah.
Somebody got murdered here. But we go because we want to, attach ourselves to the story in some way. What just happened?
Oh, the screen just went blank. It's still recording.
Oh. Am I still recording?
You are.
Okay.
Recording, Chuck. We'll be back, folks. Oh, but we totally skipped from Serial to Counterclock and forgot what was in the middle. Up and Vanished.
Up and Vanished.
So Serial was the first case that we sunk our teeth into, but Up and Vanished was the first one that I think we were like really like
trying to solve it.
This could be something. And because in Serial, they already had their guy in jail who they thought there was.
Right. That was about disproving something that they thought happened.
Exactly.
That's a different than a whodunit.
Right.
Like
absolutely.
You're just at that point, well, it is still a whodunit, but the main focus of that was just disproving the state's theory.
Right.
Which is different.
Right. And so that's another crazy thing because again, everybody that we've talked to about doing a podcast, everybody that, we've researched on the internet, they're all like, find your niche, however you want to say it, niche. In that case, like, you could literally just do specifically one specific genre, and I'm going to tell you which one I would do later. But the reason why I want to bring up Up and Vanished, everybody knows everybody who listens to true crime knows Up and Vanished because it's one of the top ones, right?
Right, of all time.
And part of that is because of how well produced it is, obviously.
That's a big key.
Right.
And I think that's a good time to maybe say here, like...
We need a producer. No.
No. Half the battle with a good true crime podcast, there's a million stories, there's a million ways to tell them. But so much of it comes down to just the production value, the narrator's voice.
The narrator's voice is
and the story cohesion, like how well they've mapped it out.
Right.
Like, and that comes down to production, but
right.
So it's production and podcast host voice. Because if you got a crappy voice that you don't want to listen to, you tune in, you're like, I am not listening to this guy for 6 episodes.
Right.
And you know me, I'm impartial to... What do I like women better?
So it's weird because you are a total sexist when it comes to music and comedy.
And podcasting.
But
in an opposite way.
But in a different direction. Yeah. So for music and comedy, you prefer men. You think your favorites are men.
Right. Yeah, I'm not making any, but not that I dislike women comedians or musicians. I just tend to not like as high of ratio of them as I do men.
However, when it comes to listening to a podcast, you love the female voice more.
Correct.
And
shout out Delia Tamber.
Exactly. Yeah, she's my favorite voice. Yeah, definitely. Delia is my favorite.
Yeah, I just like voice. Just the way she talks, all that. Well, Counterclock, this is also a good time for this. Counterclock is seasons 1 and 2 are probably my favorite podcast of all time.
Yeah.
Like a true crime podcast.
Agree.
It's my favorite story, my favorite like voice, my favorite, because the way she puts the stories together is really good too. And those stories are so good, it's like one cliffhanger.
Although Doug Wag Jr. was a pretty good story.
Doug Wag Jr. was pretty good.
That's the latest season.
Pretty good. But it did get, for me, it got a little bit lost in the middle.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But just on the true crime podcast front all up though, and the reason why I brought up Payne, Lindsay and Up and Vanished
in production
is because there's a lot of work that goes into it. And there's a lot of if you're like me, who's like, I can talk to people, but like reaching out to someone to get them to talk to me is painstaking. Those
people put boots on the ground and they knock on doors, they make phone calls. You got to get pretty, and it's a lot of like you said, it's a lot of work.
And you like become a counselor for people.
Right.
Like you're taking on everybody's energy, which
right.
I have to learn how to protect my own energy before I take on anybody else's.
Right.
And I want to take on a case, and we'll get to that too. However, the reason why I'm talking about it is because Up and Vanished dropped on August 7th of 2016.
Where were you?
And February 23rd of 2017, they had a person of interest, finally. And Tara had been missing for years. Right.
Well, that's how many, we don't have numbers, but how many, well, I do have numbers on one thing. How many crimes have been solved because of podcasts? Because it just brings attention to it. Like I said, they don't solve it, but the more people that are talking about it, the more people that are, the more that you might reach somebody that does have that one piece of information.
Right.
That they finally come forward with or whatever that blows it all wide open.
Right.
And so the show Unsolved Mysteries, turns out a lot of those are solved now.
I love it.
Because, 260 was the number that they gave that they solved over the years.
Nice.
So, and I mean, that doesn't sound like a huge number, but that's 260 crimes. Now, they're not all necessarily murders.
260 families who know what happened or whatever.
Right. That's exactly right. That's the bottom line. That to me is amazing. If they had one, that would be worth it.
Yeah.
Because it's interesting as shit.
Right.
How else would I have known Richard Church was after me? I mean, I wouldn't have.
Richard Church was... It's funny because we actually never released that episode. That wasn't an actual episode. We talked about books under the bed, which we'll talk about next episode.
That was all in that.
That was, yeah. We talked about Debbie Klein.
Well, then I think maybe we'll release a little, outtakes episode of that, in addition to this, where I talk about those things.
Yeah,
because to provide context.
Yeah.
So.
And also in the Denise Johnson case, there's a new person of interest after all these
years,
so.
And even after many seasons of Counterclock, that probably came out in I'm gonna say 2017-ish, 2018-ish, 2019-ish.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say 2019. So it's let's just say 5 years ago, 5-6 years ago, it was released. It took that long. This just happened that they have a new suspect this summer. Just a few months ago.
Right.
So, it took that long for the podcast to work. Now, I'm not saying that had to do with it, but it did have a lot to do with it because she's been drumming up. That's the thing. A lot of these cases go cold and nobody talks about them again because nobody's asking about them.
Right.
Nobody's thinking about them.
Right. And that's the thing is so I mean that's actually a really good time to bring up what some of the cases that I would like to do, right?
Yeah.
So my whole thing, if I had to pick a niche, would be where there's clearly some type of corruption within the police force.
Ooh.
That's my passion.
Now you're getting into the weeds.
Take them down.
But
I found, I did find, recently I went down a rabbit hole of this guy who was a cop in Morgantown, West Virginia. Mm-hmm. And one of his fiancées was allegedly committed suicide. And then come to find out that he was now he's in jail for stalking. But that whole police force had a bunch of crazy shit. And the whole reason why I even saw it is because the current sheriff tried to break out. No, he did bust out. Remember, he busted out that lady's window.
Oh, yeah.
He only got his position because he was replacing the guy that went to jail for stalking.
Right.
Who had been let go from other police stations for being stalker or whatever he was doing. And the new guy also had issues with... So there's this whole thing where if you do something that's, let's say, gray area or worse, and you're crossing a line, you get to retire silently, and you get to go to another police force and work. And I hate it. So anyways.
But how many, I think that's a good time to talk about how many times, that's going to be a clip. I think it's a good time to talk about. That's a good time to talk about. That's a good time to talk about it.
Oh
but
he's practicing for his show.
Police corruption.
Open mic.
No, I don't do that on stage. Maybe I should, but police corruption. How many times do we see? Maybe not police corruption, but we see police negligent. I mean, that's Dateline's whole gig. They got 34 seasons of it. The police messed up the crime or messed up the investigation.
The investigation, right.
Through either focusing on the wrong person and too much time went by, they didn't get the evidence they should have collected, or deliberate cover-up, because sometimes it's deliberate cover-up just in the sense of they fucked up at first and then they just don't want to cover up that they didn't do a good investigation.
Right.
So it gets all out of line. They get people to false confess.
Listen.
It's unbelievable.
This is why I had to stop watching some of this shit, because my stomach just turns when I see it. Like, it just turns. It makes me so angry.
Like that one we watched, and the prosecutors too. Because they get, that's a lot of it too, is these prosecutors have so much power in these towns that they're able to just keep pushing. Like, what was that one there was one that we were watching where they came up with all the evidence in the world that this guy didn't do it.
Right.
And they still insisted. It was the one in South Carolina, your friend, Barbie.
Oh.
Or Bambi.
Bambi. Oh, hey girl. I hope you're doing good with your podcast. Bambi, I can't say it. Bambi Bennett Sherman.
Yeah.
They actually, so they tried to pin the murder of her mom and stepdad on her and her fiance or boyfriend at the time. And that little fucking smarmy little asshole from Conway, South Carolina, I can't think of his name, he's a fucking DA or whatever. He, after they had evidence and a confession from the person who actually did it, he said, well, I still think they was connected to it somehow.
Right, I think they were connected. I think they set it up with them to do it. We saw that in another case, too, where like a girl was kidnapped or something, and they proved that this guy didn't do it. But they were like, well, he must have let him in the house.
They doubled down on that shit when they're wrong.
It's so crazy.
Down on it. Oh,
yeah, if you're wrong, just be like, listen.
We got it wrong.
We got it wrong. I don't know why that's so hard for them to say in a lot of these cases. Just be like, people fuck up at their job all the time. Even the most prestigious profession, doctors, sometimes things go wrong and they have to say, listen, I messed up or whatever.
Yeah.
Police should be held to the same standard of admitting when they're wrong and repercussions for when they do things that are egregiously out of the normal protocol.
I accidentally ordered a $20,000 part for Pepsi that they didn't need one time. I immediately got a call from downstairs though. They caught it before it got purchased. But my friend Chris, we went to high school together, and he called upstairs and he was like, did you just order a $20,000 part for whatever? I was working for New York at the time. And I was like, no, I ordered I don't even know, it was like a fucking bag of nozzles.
Right.
Oh, oops. People make mistakes, but I admitted it. And I'm big on admitting your mistakes. I like to proactively admit my mistakes so that nobody can come after me afterwards and say, catch me in some shit like that. I love to admit my mistakes, but cops, they will fucking double down, triple down, quadruple down.
And why were we talking about that?
To double down. Because
in the case that you were just talking about.
Bambi.
No, but before that, you brought it up because you were talking about the police corruption.
Oh, the police corruption in the case of
that you want to work.
That video that I saw on TikTok, but then also in So we don't know if it's police corruption yet. So
Right, we're using police corruption loosely. We just mean police.
but the good old boy system, which I
Right.
talk about all the time and hate. So one of the cases, which anybody who is on Facebook or TikTok or whatever at all right now will be familiar with Justice for Micah, which I have to say very slowly like that because otherwise it sounds like a construction company. Justice for Micah.
Justice for Micah. Let us handle all your home remodeling needs.
Yeah.
Justice for Micah.
Yeah. So it's not a construction company. It's for Micah Miller, who allegedly offed herself at the river down in South Carolina, somewhere between Myrtle Beach and
yeah, it was like down around Socastee or something.
So
Casti.
But again, so in this instance, it's a mega church involved in the alleged corruption. But there's been enough people down there protesting that, if it looks like a duck and walks like a duck and gets on social media and acts like a cuck, it's probably a J.P. Miller. Oh, just kidding. I don't know anything about the case.
I don't know the recipe.
I don't know the recipe. And the other one, which is kind of critical to, this has so many ties. I love when it has juicy, juicy ties. Is so there was a case that happened in January of 2011. A young teacher was found murdered. She wasn't found murdered. A young teacher was found stabbed to death in her apartment in Philadelphia. Her name is Ellen Greenberg. And her fiance at the time, Sam Goldberg. So you're going to notice a trend here that I'm not going to call out, but I'm just saying.
You can go look at the facts, folks. They're out there. Go read them for yourself. Something's up to no good.
For Ellen Greenberg's parents.
It's weird. I mean, it's one of the weirdest suicides, and I say suicides in quotation marks for those that aren't watching.
Right.
Because it's like
schmooishide if you're on one of those.
Right. It is bizarre. Like, I just don't. First off, how do you stab yourself 27 times?
Not only how do you stab yourself 27 times,
but in the back of the head.
Stab yourself in the neck, sever your spinal cord, and then proceed to
continue to stab yourself. You're the beast. You're like Michael Myers in Halloween or something if you're doing that.
I'm not buying it. So it was ruled a suicide by the medical examiner,
by the police,
and the police. And so obviously, once that happened, there's so many things. They never considered it a crime scene. Never, not once.
No, I'm with you.
Pisses me off because nothing.
Now you lost your evidence that we were just talking about. That's not necessarily police corruption. That's police negligence.
And now Sam Goldberg is living as a producer in New York, and I'm not saying he did it.
Right, we don't know. It could be any number of things.
I'm not saying he did it, but if it walks like a duck and talks like a duck. But here's why this one's jumping off the page to me. Well, so first of all, thank God her parent, or Yahweh, I guess in this case, her parents were able to get the Pennsylvania Supreme Court to
yeah, they're going to take a look at it.
They're going to take a look at it to switch it from murder or suicide to murder, which they should fucking do. But I don't know what they're going to do because this case sat on Josh Shapiro's desk for 4 years.
When he was the Attorney General.
When he was the Attorney General for Pennsylvania. And so then I'm not sure who uncovered it. Kudos to you, podcaster. So whenever Kamala Harris was considering Shapiro to be her running mate, he recused himself from this case.
And it was one of the things that because of his connection to this case, this was probably one of the things that they just were like, I think we're going to go with this way guy.
Yeah. Which I'm kind of frustrated because I had voted for him and now I don't trust him one bit because even if he does not know Sam Goldberg's family, even if he doesn't know, what reason would he have to let that lay on his desk for 4 years and not touch it, pass it off, give it to anybody? And maybe he has a reason.
Right. I was saying stop to tapping the.
Oh.
Because it really.
It's coming through your mic when I tap the table.
Well, mine is, so that's why I've been stopping myself from doing it.
Yeah.
Oh.
But I thought you were telling me to tone down my anger.
No, I was just.
Josh.
No, I don't care.
Oh,
I'm not for anybody. I'm not for any politician.
Why do you hold on to a case for 4 years? What good does that do anybody? How much? What else is going on in Philadelphia other than petty crime that you couldn't just look at those? I don't know. I don't follow Philadelphia that much. Scott has the thing he likes to refer to it as.
We're not doing that here. We're not doing that here.
I'm joking. We don't care. We've been to Philly several times, and I actually like it.
It's a good city. Good city. Great food. Great food.
Great
food. Great people. Great karaoke.
I do have a little list of cases that I would like to potentially look into at some point. But before we do that, let's go down the path right quickly of what we hate about true crime shows.
I'm glad you brought this up because I forgot all about this. First off, I'm going to put it out here. We know what, and I'm talking to every true crime show, movie, documentary, podcast, web series, anything. Stop telling me what luminol is and what it does. I know how it works. They spray it on the thing, shows you bodily fluids. We all know how it works. But
we know that bleach could be a false positive.
Every single piece of true crime produced has a thing where they tell you what luminol is. They over-explain themselves for filler of their time.
Yes, that's exactly it. We get it. We get that you have to have 26 minutes of content.
Right, but if you're going to talk to me about useless things,
right?
I don't need
something else useless.
Right, tell me that Tell me that the victim liked going to the store and buying lemons.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? I'd rather hear that than learn how luminol works.
Like a 12 lemon centerpiece.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but I want to know. So I don't give a fuck what luminol is, first of all, because studies have shown that it's not always accurate, right?
Have they?
Yeah, remember, I just got done saying bleach can be a false positive.
I thought that it could throw the results, but...
Okay, so then that makes it not always accurate.
Right. I see what you're saying.
I'm just saying, stop using filler. Or if you're going to use filler, give us something sexy that we can bite our teeth into. Or something that we can think about.
We just don't... We know, we've all seen every Law and Order. We've all watched all the CSIs, all the Law and Orders.
That you have to put DNA into the CODIS
database. Right. We know how that works. We know what you're looking for. We understand the fingerprint procedure. We understand blood test.
We now know that dental impressions may not be...
They're not accurate. Not dental impressions.
Junk science, that's what it's referred to.
Bite mark analysis is junk science. Bite mark analysis is junk science. Hair follicle investigation is junk science.
Lie detector tests.
Lie detectors are junk science. There's another big one too that it's like, what?
Handwriting samples.
Handwriting samples. But what was the other one? There was another one that was really junk science. Maybe it was the bite mark thing. Because that guy had testified. The guy with the bite mark guy.
Well, that was the...
There's a whole documentary series about cases that they had to reverse because what he was talking about was not reliable.
Who was selling
and he still thinks it's... Yeah, he still is on there preaching about how it's not junk science, but it clearly is.
Right.
All scientists agree that it's trash. And here on Gilded Trash, we know when something is trash science. And it's trash science.
Well, and it had me convinced in the West Memphis 3 case too.
The bite marks.
Yeah, remember the one stepdad, the goofy one?
Oh, Snaggletooth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, he might have just been doing that to punish the kids.
That's the other thing. Let's talk about that right here because in every true crime case, there's always like a red herring of a guy who's like way too interested. But he ends up not being the guy. Because people are just weirdos that don't necessarily kill people. but they're just like
want to just be attached to tragedy,
attached to cases,
and mystery, and cases.
That's a thing. They have a name for it. You hear them talk about it, like people that want to be but they like want to help the police,
right?
And they like interject themselves, but sometimes it's the killer. So we've seen ones where it's the killer.
Hello, Dexter.
Yeah,
he was working for the police.
But like, there was that one where that guy was hanging out down at the police bar. He ended up being the serial killer. I don't remember the case. But he was just trying to interject himself into the case. I don't know why they do that. If I committed a series of murders, I'm obviously not gonna be like, "What are you guys working on over there?"
But like, if you're that mentally unstable to do a murder, do you think like you're probably?
Well, it depends on what kind of murder.
It's probably working on your mind, and if you can't get to what the facts are, the real facts, it might drive you even more insane.
Well, I think too with some of those is like this was a serial killer specifically, but they want to be involved in that. That's a part of the element of it for them is they want to hear the news reports, see the investigation.
Right.
How many of them have interacted with the police in some way or another, or the reporters, or whatever? That's a thing for serial killers. Right. And that's what this was, is this guy was hanging out down, like talking to hey, what's up, guys? How's that serial killer case going? And meanwhile, he's the serial killer. They caught on, though. They caught on. They got him.
Right.
They caught on after about the 7th one.
Speaking of serial killers, I have to give a shout out to The Mentalist. That was just random, but there was a case on The Mentalist that kind of mirrors
Patrick James.
Yeah, I love him.
I do love him.
He's so smart.
Very much so.
All right, so let's wrap it up with a couple cases that you may or may not know, but feel free to interject your thoughts, opinions, and feelings.
Sure, let's go. Let's hear them.
So,
I'm a detective. I'm out here. These cases are keeping me up late at night with this heartburn. I can't even take it, all these bodies.
Oh, my Lanta. What was that?
I don't know.
Oh, you were just... I thought that you were impersonating an actual guy on, like...
No, I was just being
an
angry, disgruntled detective who, for some reason,
we
had
can
a New
talk
York
about that
accent.
real quick, though.
What?
We forgot how many amazing voices there are in true crime. Oh. We talked about loving, like, the podcast.
My favorites.
Yes.
So, Robert Stack.
Yes.
Is the greatest mystery voice of all time.
Yes.
He'll scare the shit out of you.
Yes.
But he's also, like, engaging. Like, you want to hear what he's got to say. And he's like... And it's just like, what?
It's scary and soothing all at the same time.
Although, you know what I've learned? You know whose voice is very similar? William Shatner.
Yeah.
And it's weird because and here's how you know they're very similar. Here's a little test for you kids out there. Make it the latest TikTok thing. So you get William Shatner on The Unexplained on one TV and Robert Stack on Unsolved Mysteries on another TV. If you turn both of them down to like a low volume level to where you can't necessarily like just out of reach to like where you fully know who it is, just one notch below that, you cannot tell them apart. Like the spots in their voice that are like the warmest and the deepest, like match up almost perfectly. Right. And because the reason I know this is because I like to have the TV on late at night while I'm sleeping. And sometimes I wake up and it's Unsolved Mysteries, and sometimes I wake up and it's The Unexplained, and it's down low, and I can't tell without looking at the TV what show it is. But I've been tricked both times.
Jerry Seinfeld's motherfucking voice for me, I'm fine.
I've also had Robert Stack be involved in nightmares, though, so that's a big one.
I had to implement a rule when we first started dating that he was not allowed to watch Jerry Seinfeld at night, the Seinfeld show, because I couldn't. If I heard his voice in the middle of the night, like I would wake up and just be.
What's the deal with murder?
But yeah, so and Keith Morrison's voice, you can't not bring up Keith Morrison's voice, which was the best voice ever until Hader ruined it. Bill Hader ruined it for me.
I mean, I love that impression, but
I do.
Keith Morrison's the best Dateline guy, hands down.
Yeah.
He trumps Murph.
Yeah.
Andrea.
Yeah.
And old Mankiewicz. Mankiewicz sounds like an ex-cop. Dr. Mankiewicz. He's down there. He's worked every case. I don't know why all my cops are in New York. I guess because of Law and Order.
Yeah.
Growing up watching, that was my first impression. And Columbo. Those are my first impression of like detectives with suits and trench coats and, you know, stuff like that.
What was that one that my mom used to
And they all talk like this. Nah.
Oh, Heat of the Night. Was that a show?
In the heat of the night. I think it was a show, but I don't know that I don't know what it was about.
Anything about it, but yeah.
In the heat of the night.
So we live in the Johnstown, Pennsylvania area, and there's a couple cold cases over the years. Some of them are in the early 70s. I think I talked at one time when we were talking about my Uncle Mike that
Miami Mike.
All back.
Miami Mike. Get him, buddy.
Miami Mike was found in a hotel room with a self-inflicted shotgun wound. But I've heard rumors that may have not been the case. But my family's weird. They don't like to talk about shit. So that may never get reopened. So whoever did it, if they did do it, is going to get away with it. That's all I'm going to say there. But most of the cases either happened, like I said, in the 70s, or there's been a rash of recent murders. But they're all, so those ones are all drug related, right? We've got a lot of...
Can we just be honest? The drug related ones are not as fun.
They're not fun.
Because you know why. It's it's not crazy. When it's business, it's like not as good.
Right. It's like when a company takes over another company. You don't really care about that too much. That's kind of like the drug business. Like, if they're like off murdering because of drugs, I really don't care. That's the
right. It's like the mafia. Right. Like they're just killing each other, doing that. Like I don't.
It's the price to do it.
That it's when you're conducting business and murder's a part of it. When your business is murder, I don't care about it.
So everybody knows we don't condone.
I don't condone murder.
I mean, I do in certain cases.
Well, certain ones, but
anyway. But in the 90s, so like these three cases that I'm going to bring up, 95, 96, 96. So the case in 95, there's like no information. I'm pretty sure her kid, at least one of her children, is now since passed away. But Catherine Bitter, she was in her early 20s. She already had a kid, at least maybe 2 or 3, and she was living out in like the Beaverdale area, which is Cambria County, Pennsylvania, but it's outside of Johnstown. It's like rural.
Rural.
You know, I can't say that.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's rural.
But so she was last seen with her boyfriend. But I from what I read, I don't know that anybody thought that it was her boyfriend, and maybe he was cleared. I'm not a hundo on that. Like I said, there's not a whole lot of information out there. But then, like, when you go into Facebook to kind of look it up, there's people commenting on it who lived around that time back in the day. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that jumped off the page to me was that she was fed to the pigs at one of the farms out there.
Oh.
Yeah. So
pigs will eat anything.
I don't know if that, that was just literally a rumor that was going around about what happened to her, because she's never been found. So.
It seems to be like when it's unsolved, people make up. You can only take a lot of that stuff with a grain of salt, because it's like the telephone game. It's like these aren't people connected to the case. They just heard this from somebody who heard it from this person. Right. And we know that people are full of shit.
And one of the other rumors that I read was that there was like an underground wine cellar out there somewhere.
I like that.
That a farmer owned the land. So if anybody knows more about that and wants to deep dive it, hit me up. It's Alana at gildedtrash.com. But in the meantime, there's relatively no information on that one, so I can't do anything.
Right.
The next one that jumps off the page to me, 1996, it was January, 27-year-old Deanna Horner was found with 27 blows to her head, which I find odd.
Can I ask one question here?
Yes.
Just right off the top.
Yes.
Is she a descendant of the people who named Hornerstown?
Hornerstown? Well, so her husband, I think his name is Ed Horner. I don't even know.
So she wouldn't be, that wasn't her maiden name, that was her.
Right.
Name. Okay,
So
I'm with you.
That was her husband's name.
Right, I'm with you. Okay.
I think I wrote it down somewhere. Maybe I
That
didn't.
takes away my theory then.
But so her husband. So here's the thing: is this girl was 27 in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, in 1995.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that there weren't business people in their 20s in the 90s. I
Right.
mean, I graduated
Sure.
in 1993, right? So she's 27. I don't know what her maiden name is, so maybe that plays into it. But what I don't know is why these young 20-somethings had money, her and her husband. Now, he had some money in real estate.
So you think there might be some improprieties there?
Yeah, I don't think, as far as I can tell, they didn't come from families with money, is what I'm saying.
Okay. So there's a question as to what they might have been involved in.
Right.
Perhaps. Maybe not. I don't want to put that out there. We're just throwing questions.
Right. So...
I'm just asking questions.
And so she was found, and there's a couple of things about this. So first of all, her husband's business partner, Richard Allen Smith, was the last person to allegedly have seen her, and he was acquitted. So he was
so he got charged and beat the charges.
He was acquitted.
Which, again, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. I don't know the evidence, so I can't speak to it.
It doesn't mean he didn't do it.
It doesn't mean that he didn't do it. It doesn't mean that he did.
Probably, if he did do it, they didn't have enough and they jumped the gun on it. And
right.
tried to get it solved too
Which
quick.
happens a lot too.
Right.
Or he might not have done it. That's
Right.
I mean...
But if he did do it and there's nothing they can do.
I'd be interested in to look into that one. What's that?
Well, there's more to this, so I'm going to get into it because
yeah, why not?
The cool part is the rumors.
Let's show what we would do.
So she was, like I said, I don't know that it's related, but 27-year-old and 27 blows to the head. Like I thought that was kind of weird.
Could be connected.
Yeah. So where they found her was they referred to it as an abandoned house. Okay. And I want to talk about that because the house was owned by Dr. Chandra Vora. And if you're from the Johnstown area, you know who Dr. Vora is because she's like a local legend. And I don't mean that in a good way, and it's not bad either. It's actually kind of sad. I don't know how much of this is true, but I was told growing up that she was an actual medical doctor in India and moved to the United States, and at some point, and I don't know if it was when she lost her husband or what, went off the deep end. So she became the bag lady, and she pushed a cart, and I don't know, she might even still be around. I don't know if she's still alive, but she would push a cart through town and collect cans and whatever. Go ahead.
I was going to say she was looking for Gilded Trash.
Yes, she was. But I don't know if she had the wherewithal to think about it. I don't know. Like a lot of people...
But she went from doctor to bag lady. That's the point.
Right. And a lot of people say that, you know, she was crazy. A lot of people said that she wasn't crazy, that it was a life choice. I don't know.
That's crazy, though, because, like, I mean, I could certainly see... I mean, this is such a weird thing, but every town obviously has a person that pushes a shopping counter. Like every small town, I should say, has a couple of homeless people that are known to the locals.
Right, people know who they are.
In cities, they're transients, and you don't, you know.
Right.
So it's a little different. When it's local homeless, people know who they are, and they all have a name for them. It's like, oh, that's Benny the bag guy, or Johnny the can man.
Yeah.
You know, and they have a thing. Yeah, they have a thing that they do. And everybody, there's always like an air of mystery to their backstory.
Yeah.
They're almost like a superhero.
Right.
In that aspect, because like nobody's like, where did they live before? What did they do?
Right.
How did they get here?
Right.
How did they become the Caped Avenger that you know.
So Deanna was found in Dr. Vora's house, which they have listed as abandoned. And again, like, I don't know if it was technically abandoned, because I think that it was just, she would come and go as she pleased and didn't really have an attachment to personal things like that. But I mean, she knew it was her house. I don't know if it was taken, to my knowledge, it wasn't like up for tax sale or anything like that. Are you doing your football picks?
No, I'm just looking to see where I was.
The fantasy drafts tonight for some shit, and he's in there. Okay, so...
It's not just tonight, it's in 29 minutes. I'm just trying to see my draft position.
Okay. So, so here are some... I got a hair stuck to me, it's pissing me off. So that's where Deanna was found, in Dr. Vora's house, which they had listed as abandoned, so I don't know how, like, what the backstory on that is. Her husband's business partner was acquitted, but at the end of the day, here's some of the rumors involved with this one. That the prosecuting attorney, when Richard Allen Smith was being indicted, had a cocaine addiction. So remember, I said, these are young people, they have a construction company, they have real estate holdings, right? But there's also a lot of rumors of mafia connections. So
Ooh.
I'm going to say the guy's name because he was listed.
I love a good mafia connection.
Yeah.
That's fun.
I'm a little afraid. I feel like I'm saying Beetlejuice right now.
Right. You don't mafia.
But I'm saying this guy's name because it was listed in the paper.
Oh, wow.
But
whoa. You heard it here second, folks.
Allegedly, there was a hitman from Florida named John Charney, who was contracted by her husband to come up here and kill her.
Wow. That's interesting because, on multiple levels.
Yeah. So when I was looking into that, allegedly this John Charney guy was a cocaine runner and has ties to some local families who own businesses that I'm not going to say out loud.
Right. But there's some ties between some businesses, some cocaine dealings, and some people.
If I get murdered, here's a couple things.
If we get murdered.
Make sure it wasn't antifreeze first, because if it was antifreeze, Scott did it. Actually, now if it's antifreeze, it could be anybody, because I said it out loud.
Right. Now
they're going to frame you.
Oh my God.
Don't
Way
frame
to go. Way to go. This is like Scott Peterson.
That's exactly.
They seen the body where he was fishing, they put it there. I'm not going down that road.
No.
We don't know if Scott Peterson did it or not. And that's what nobody knows.
Nobody knows. I just snorted on that one. Okay, so those were the rumors around that one. And allegedly, this guy was running a plane, flying a plane back and forth to Florida, bringing back cocaine back and forth.
This sounds good, man.
I know.
It has all the elements. All the elements.
And every single one of them could be a red herring. And it could have just been Richard Allen Smith.
Right. That's the thing about so many of these is like, there's all this stuff going on, but just because you see things, that's what you have to remember. Just because there's smoke doesn't mean there's fire. And sometimes that's true. If there is smoke, sometimes there is fire. But like, especially in some of these cases, the clues and stuff are so convoluted. And like you said, red herrings, they have you going on wild goose chases.
Right.
Because you're spending so much time running down this lead and then it turns out to be nothing.
Right.
And this sounds like one of them cases.
It sounds like something juicy that somebody could sink their teeth into if they're so inclined to do a podcast that's cold case or unsolved or whatever. I'm not saying I'm going to be that person. There's a couple that are probably nearer and dear to my heart that I would like to go down, but for fear of being murdered by local drug dealers, I'm not going to. Robert T. Williams, rest in peace. But the case that really, really, really pulls at my heartstrings for a lot of reason, and it touches on all that. It touches on local corruption. It touches on, rumors. It touches on all kinds of things. Is Beth Ann Bodenschatz. I'm sorry, guys. It's one of the two. But so she was 36 years old when she was murdered in January of 1996. She was a nurse.
She was born in 1970? Is that what that is? 26, 96.
60. She was born in 60.
Wait, say it again?
She was 36 when she died.
36. I thought you said 26.
She was 36.
36.
But she was 36 when she died in 1996.
I'm with you.
So Beth Ann was a nurse at Lee Hospital at the time. It's no longer, there's a Lee campus still down there, but I don't think it's functional as Lee Hospital. It probably has a new name at this point. I don't know.
Right. Everybody knows how hospitals change hands every 4 to 5 years in small towns. So
yeah, exactly.
That's what happened here.
So at the time it was Lee Hospital, and they were looking to merge or be
I thought you were going to say they were looking to murder.
I think they were. So, no. I don't know what happened. I wasn't there.
In Johnstown, they might have been.
So Beth Ann lived up in the Summer Hill / New Germany area of Cambria County, which is a nice little quiet.
I was going to say, it sounds very nice. I think it sounds nicer than it probably really is.
So what's that one town that one guy, that guy that was in the movie?
Yeah, Charles fucking Bronson, man. Charles fucking Bronson, dude, is from Ehrenfeld.
So,
which is right there. It's all the same place.
Ehrenfeld, New Germany, Summer Hill, it's all the
They're on
same.
different sides of creeks and rivers and stuff.
Exactly.
That's all. That's the only
all
difference.
Tiny little coal mining towns in Cambria County, Pennsylvania.
But Charles fucking Bronson. Shout out to Action Bronson just for the hell of it.
Who I think is actually just Jelly Roll.
Yeah. No, you would never seen him in the room at the same time.
Sorry, Jelly, I love you, but I think it's a conspiracy, I think
it is.
I think you and Action are the same person. I don't remember what Action Bronson even looks like, and he might not even look like Jelly.
No, he doesn't.
But in my brain,
they're both fat white guys.
Oh, don't say that.
I'm a fat white guy. I think if anybody can say fat white guy, it's me.
This is true.
And I say it with the hardest R.
You're not fat. I love you. Okay, so let's talk about Beth. And it's not a joke. I don't want to joke about this.
No, I'm not joking about her. No, I'm not joking about her. I was just joking about the hospital.
I know. Hospitals are fun. I'll cut that out.
That's another episode.
Yeah.
That's
we won't
another
talk about
episode.
That at all. We are bound by contract to not talk about the healthcare system.
You can't even... Enough. There's a knock at the door.
So Beth Ann had 4 kids at the time, 11, 9, 8, and I think 4. So the youngest one was at home with her that day, and I think it was a Friday morning. The 11, 9, and 8-year-olds were at school, and they came home from school. Their dad was still at work, and they found their mom with a gunshot wound to the back of her head. The 4-year-old was, or I can't remember if the baby was 2 or 4, but the child was unharmed. Her ring was missing, which was a 2-carat worth roughly $2,500.
So robbery might have been a motive.
She
was in her home?
Yeah, she was in her home. Okay. Her husband was at work. The kids were at school.
So we're talking daytime.
She was also a nurse.
So we're talking daytime now.
We're talking daytime, early Friday. And the thing of it is, when you're a nurse, and I could be wrong, maybe she worked the same Monday through Friday schedule, but I've worked in hospitals.
Yeah, she probably rotated.
Right. So you would have to know somewhat of her comings and goings. You wouldn't necessarily have to write a book, but you would have to pay a little bit of attention. So it was.
Now, did her husband work during the day though?
Right.
He worked set schedule during the day.
And I'm 99.9% positive that they were able to clear him, and I don't think
pretty quickly. Yeah.
I don't think anybody's ever thought that he was a suspect.
Right. I mean, some people they're able to rule out quick. Like you said, if 8 people saw him at work, it's a done deal. It's not. There's no more to it than that.
So the 3 older kids came home and found their mom, and it was a .40 caliber Glock that was never recovered.
A 40 cal, you said?
Yeah, yeah. And so nobody was ever charged. They don't want to charge anyone because they want to have the evidence. there's the rumor behind this one, the juicy tidbit, and I've heard it over the years from multiple people. This has been the rumor since day one. As a matter of fact, I went to a business college, and one of my professors there was actually friends with Beth Ann, and I think even she had mentioned this, and I won't say her name because I don't want her to get in trouble.
Yeah.
But
yeah, don't say anything.
so apparently Beth Ann was set to testify in court against either a doctor at the hospital or in a insurance case or
for something
that
related
would,
to,
and at the same time Lee Hospital was being acquired or merging, which would have looked bad.
Right, I mean that makes sense. Right, I mean I guess it depends on what it is.
So, so I think if there were any cases that I were going to deep dive, it would definitely be that one. Because,
I'm about to start working on it before we even get
well,
off the podcast.
A lot of the players are still in the game. That's what I'm saying. If it was, I mean, the hospital thing could be a red herring, but
I don't think it is.
There's some of the players are still around. I mean,
somewhere red herring's got a bad rap.
And she's got 4 children that deserve to know what and why, right?
Right. No, I'm with you. Ugh. That sounds like a good case.
So angry.
Very good case.
So, anyways, that wraps up my diatribe on all the things bad in crime that happens. But yet I say...
And that's the story of crime, kids.
Right. I don't ever... I don't have my heart on solving a case.
I would love this. I mean, tell me you don't want to dig your teeth into that juicy little thing there.
I do, but we talked about this in the last episode. When we were setting it up, what are we going to do next week? We set it up and we talked about how much work it is to do a true crime.
We were just talking about it.
That little tidbit on Beth Ann, that is bits and pieces that I've written down over the years of going down Facebook rabbit holes and looking up names and stuff like that. Obviously, I'm not going to say where I saw.
You either have to have a team, or you become Patton Oswalt's wife.
Right, and I'm very conducive to both pills and suicide, so I don't think I want to go down that rabbit hole.
I don't want to get into that, but
no, she didn't commit. I don't think she committed suicide.
No, she would overdose.
Yeah,
but because she was taking so many pills to stay up, pills to go to sleep,
right?
Because she became so obsessed with the Golden State Killer case. She was writing a book,
right?
And she became so involved in it that it.
But I mean, to be fair, the Golden State was like the golden goose.
The Golden State Killer case is the. Out of all,
it's the get of this century.
Yeah, well, not only that, but it's the amalgamation of all the true crime podcasts. Everything that created the ability for that case to be solved was because of true crime.
Yeah.
People working on it, and that was decades after the crimes had stopped. Because the last crimes were the 80s. Decades after the crimes had stopped, civilian sleuths kept working. They did the DNA angle, and even that took civilian sleuths to root through all the genealogy to get to actually catching the guy.
Right.
And that's amazing. That's amazing.
But look at how much it takes to get it when it's not a gimme.
Look at the man. So just by comparison, how many documentaries were there about that case? How many people working on books? Podcast,
all of it.
Just so that there was probably millions of man hours involved between the actual case, the detectives and stuff that worked it. Millions of man hours into catching this guy.
Right.
That's amazing to think about.
Right. So, and I just don't. Right, and we don't have millions of man hours or a production team or
any of that.
We're both very skilled researchers. We could do it, but we've got other things going on right now is the point. And if we had nothing else going on, and we both have full-time jobs and you have a part-time job. So if
what I'm saying is researching cases is tough. We need a crack squad team. Is that what you said? Like a crack squad, a crack team.
A crack team.
Where did they come up with that anyway? I guess maybe, but
I don't know.
selling crack, I don't know.
No, it's been around since the.
But why didn't crack dealers use that? They're like, we got a crack team specialist out here on the corner today, boy. But no, but so what I'm saying is, if you're a super skilled researcher and you have a technical skills, production skills, and you want to join together and form a super team, we could spend a little bit of time working on some cases.
Right, exactly. Like, we have the resources.
Yeah, we
to
could
do
put
it.
in.
We
We could put in a
time.
a set amount of time.
Exactly.
But we wouldn't be able to. It wouldn't be able to be our life.
Right.
Right.
For sure.
So what I'm saying is, if you're already working on something that's about, you know, hit me up.
Because I want my husband to continue his comedy adventures.
I would love to be introduced like that, though. They'd be like, he's out here solving murders and telling jokes, folks. Next one up. That'd be a great introduction.
Patton Oswalt.
It's Fat Patton Oswalt.
No, thank you.
No.
So, real quickly, because we've actually talked about a lot, what are we talking about next week?
You gave me the willies. No, we're talking.
So excited.
I'm so excited. We're talking paranormal.
It's October, babies.
We're talking the paranormal. Ghost. Goblins. No, we might talk about goblins. We just recently found out about some goblins down there in Kentucky. Goblins are on the table.
I could do 1,000,000 hours of this.
We could talk about
that we're going to do next.
Right,
week.
we could talk 25 hours because we both come from families who have a long history of loving paranormal stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's like we'll definitely be able. We grew up with it.
We might have to split it into decades.
It might be 2 episodes.
It might be two episodes. I mean, what better to lead into Halloween season than
right?
2 episodes?
Paranormal Part 1, Paranormal
everything.
Part 2. You kidding me?
Yes.
You kidding me right now?
Yes. I think that's the only thing that you and I talked about for the first probably 4 months of our relationship.
Oh, I'm sure.
It was just I don't want to get into it. I do want to get into it.
Don't get into it. No, don't get into it. We used to take
the kids ghost hunting.
Oh my goodness, we've been ghost hunting since before there was ghost hunters.
Yeah.
Long before there was ever ghost hunters. Yeah. And my grandma was ghost hunting back before there was even. They didn't even use the word ghost. That's they said spirit.
Spirit. I love it. All right, so we won't go down that rabbit hole, but in closing, do you have any parting words for our friends?
I do have parting words from
our trash can fam.
From a great detective who once lived named PJ Longtooth Hollingsworth. Or it might have been Inspector Gadget, I'm not sure. But they said that one man's trash is another man's clue to solving a murder. Always remember that.
Oh my God. Until next time, folks.
Peace.